Joe Rogan has a message for teachers who sexualize children. Y'all know I've been talking about this for a minute now. It's disgusting what they doing to our children. That's why I got my daughter out of school and got her into homeschooling. Because this stuff that they're doing to our children, the indoctrination, the sexualization is just ridiculous. They should be learning math, science, English, things of that nature. Not about one's sexuality. No, and the teachers discussing their own sexuality to the children. Like, why do you think that's okay to talk to a child about who you choose to have sex with? It doesn't make any sense. But before we get started, go ahead, hit that like button, share this out so we can get this information out there. Subscribe if you're not already a subscriber. Hit that alarm bell so you know when I'm putting out new stuff. Also, check out my link tree in the description. It has a link to my Patreon where I talk about things I can't talk about here, and there's also a link to my Instagram where I put out stuff, put out tons of news throughout the day to keep you informed. And each news thing that I put out has a little summary on what's going on, so we can keep you informed. All right, let's talk about this news. What's the job of an educator? Joe Rogan has an idea, and it's not in sync with the latest teaching trends. While conversing with comedian and political commentator Dave Smith last week, Joe addressed the current case of public education and its phenomenal focus on sex. Um, as with many things on the Joe Rogan Experience podcast, opinions weren't of the woke variety. The pair pointed out that whether it concerns homo or heterosexuality, sexualizing little kids should disturb everyone. Curiously, it doesn't. But to parents who are horrified by encroachment of sex on public education, it's time to fight. And that's the thing. It doesn't matter if it doesn't matter if it's heterosexual. It doesn't matter if it's homosexual. They shouldn't be having these discussions with children. Quote, I remember when the Justice Department called those angry parents terrorists, Dave recalled. The two agreed that with the stick of sexual indoctrination, government education is poking a bear. Dave put it thusly, quote, you mess with people's kids, that's something people will do really messed up stuff over. People can put up with a lot, but you're going to brainwash my kid with some ideology that I don't believe in, that I might even hate. It's a dangerous thing to provoke someone with. And I agree. I mean, that's where people draw the line. You don't mess with people's kids. But Joe called to impressionable ages, quote, children are very malleable. That's how you can get children to be religious martyrs. Like, how do you think they talk those kids into strapping themselves up with dynamite and walking into some building and blowing themselves up? You can't get a child to subscribe to all sorts of ideologies, hateful ideologies, loving ideologies. People are malleable. We imitate our environment. These days, federal curriculum as well as individual teachers are training youngsters in the way of wokeness. Joe sees it as a far outside education purview. Quote, even though you think you're doing a good thing, you're still not doing what you're supposed to do. What you're supposed to do as an educator is teach kids, give them information. You're not supposed to be grooming them towards a particular ideology or lifestyle. Quote, I mean grooming in a sexual sense, he made clear. I mean, he said, I don't mean grooming in a sexual sense, he made clear. I mean schooling them to behave in a certain way or to think a certain way or to go against their parents' belief. That's not your job, especially when it comes to sexual issues. And I totally agree with that. That's not their job. You're supposed to be teaching them basic information. You're not supposed to be training them because you think a particular way or you have a particular ideology. You're not supposed to be teaching these kids that. It may not have been the purpose of America's past, but the aim of education has clearly changed. Surely a generation of students can't fathom how things were only 20 years ago. For all of America's past, school was a place where youth learned to read, write, compute numbers, and develop critical thinking skills. I'm gonna tell you, I don't know about the critical thinking skills. They've been stopped teaching critical thinking years ago. But schooling was an endeavor centered on knowledge, not perspective. That appears to have changed. Sex, gender, social, and political viewpoints look to have replaced reading, writing, and arithmetic. Um, um, Joe Biden, he asserted the LGBT umbrella is letting people get away. um, I said Joe Biden. I mean Joe Rogan. Joe Biden's on the mind. Joe Rogan, he asserted the LGBT umbrella is letting people get away with things that would otherwise draw universal condemnation. Quote, here's my take. Imagine if you have had little kids in your class, 8, 9, 10 years old, and you started talking about male and female intercourse. Like people will go, what are you doing? But there's books that kids can get out of the library in certain school districts that they put in there that show oral sex or someone performing a sex act on an inanimate object. If we were talking about purely heterosexual relationships, we would all agree that this is absolutely not a teacher's job to explain to a child. Everyone would say that, but because it's homosexual stuff, they allow it. That makes no sense to me. A sexualization is upon us. Quote, how did anyone ever sign off on the little kids drag show? How did anyone imagine, again, the heterosexual version of that? Imagine a bunch of strippers that are in their 30s and 40s and they're getting young girls to strip and dance for men in the audience. Imagine if you ever saw that. That would be a horrendous thing. Like, what are they encouraging? What are you encouraging? What are you doing to these children? Why are you taking away their innocence at such an early age? But if it's a drag show and you have a 10-year-old drag queen and he goes out there and he's fabulous, look at him, he's amazing, but you're sexualizing this young person. You're still doing something to someone who hasn't even gone through puberty. And that's a great point. Flip that. What if you take out the drag and it was a heterosexuals doing this? It would be an uproar, but it's okay because it's drag queens and homosexuals. They say that it's okay. Dave noted it's a topic that should bring Americans together, but it doesn't. Quote, how the heck do we not at least have a consensus about this, that we're against this? We could disagree on so many issues, but can't we all agree with not sexualizing kids? No, because the leftist has painted themselves into a corner and they have to protect because the LGBTQ is a protected class. They got to protect them even though they're sexualizing kids. They have to be so woke that they're allowing this to happen, and it's totally ridiculous. Concerning sexual instruction, Joe's message to teachers are clear. That's not your job. Well, it used to not be, but judging by school board measures across the country, it may now be exactly their job. And it's despicable, it's sickening, and I hope the parents stand up to put an end to this. But let me know what you think. Leave your comments down below. Like, share, and subscribe, and check out democrapublics.com for the latest in news. Until next time, peace.